Welcome everybody to episode number 14 of Fitness, Food, and Fun. And today I am joined by hip hop star Mike Nichols. I think the podcast just got cooler by a level just by having Mike on the show today. So Mike, first of all, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure.
The first thing I'm going to do, like I was saying, is I want to give an intro to you, to everybody listening, a little bit on your background, and then throw in anything else that people need to know about you. But from an athletic standpoint, I know we played freshman football together. I can't remember, like if you went on and you kept playing
Yeah,
varsity beyond that. Did you?
yeah, I played on 4 years. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I ended up stopping at 2 when I got hurt and then just focused on wrestling. So you did that. We played flag football for a hot second together at Eastern with Canada, of course, which was a lot of fun. Beyond athletics, you're just doing amazing things in the music industry. You put out 3 albums to date, plus an autobiography, which is in tandem with your latest album, Bars for Days. And I'm still waiting to see if you're going to get that on audiobook, actually, because I like to listen to books more than I like to read them. But you are performing at levels where you have people on your albums such as Method Man. That blew my mind when I saw that. That's just so cool and such a great level of accomplishment. And before that, you were a longtime performer at the Smoke Jazz Club in New York City with the Nickel and Dime Op. So you've been at this for a long time, making a lot of progress, and now you're reaching some pretty amazing levels. What else about you do you want people to know?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it pretty well. 3 albums. I mean, it's actually more when you all put it all together because I had my group, The Links, which was based out of University of Miami, where I went after I left Eastern, and we were doing our thing. We put out some albums, and then Nickel and Dime Ops, we put out 3 albums as a group. But I'm the lead lyricist on that, so I wrote all that stuff and performed all that stuff. And then 2, 3. I think you're right. 3 solo albums as well. 3 solo albums as well. So it's more like somewhere around 10. Plus,
Okay.
I've been on a million projects too. Like I can't even count honestly how much stuff I've done. But for me, it's just like passion. I just started doing it, and it's just like it clicked. That's what I decided I wanted to do, and I never stopped. I literally have never stopped writing and recording since 1996. My pen, my mind, constantly moving. As you see, I got my microphone right behind me. Project stuff right here. Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell, man. And yeah, the album is out now with Method Man, which is obviously amazing. So proud of that. And the book, the autobiography, which goes back to all the way to my days in Hartford and then in Norwich, where I talk about playing football with all you guys. If you guys don't know, Andy, by the way, he was just a beast, on the football field. He wasn't the biggest guy, especially when we were younger, but I mean, you did not want to go against him head to head. He hit so hard, man. You had so much heart, man. I always respected you. Like really, really. That's something.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot. But yeah, I was a tiny little guy, man. I was in the 5'2", 95 pounds category when we were out there playing freshman football. So
Real talk, man. He was little, but he used to just nail people. It's like if God would have graced you with like a 6'2" physique and you weighed like 180 pounds, I mean, you probably would have went pro, like, because you had the heart and the skill that was incredible, man. Everyone respected you.
yeah, I love.
Went on and did your wrestling thing, and that was really awesome too. So kudos to my man Andy McTiger, man.
Yeah, I love hearing that, man. Thank you. I'll take it because it'll just be like, yeah, man, I could have went, if I was bigger, I probably would have went pro.
He was hard.
Yeah, just wanted you guys to know. So, like I mentioned that, as far as I know, the first thing you did was freshman football. But what was there before that, and maybe what inspired you to get into doing athletics? And on top of that, as you mentioned in your autobiography, you were coming up in Hartford, and I caught up on some of your experiences there, and maybe staying away from the circumstances outside in the streets was a part of a reason for that. But I'd rather have you tell me what kind of moved you to football.
I mean, my initial love in terms of athleticism was actually martial arts. I did Taekwondo. I started when I was 7 years old and actually achieved like what they call the junior black belt by the time I was 12. And I was really into it. I used to do the state championships and all that stuff. I always advocate everybody do martial arts because especially if you find the right sensei, like they groom your mind and they teach you about discipline and things like that and how to use your body in ways you never thought of. And then when I moved to Southeastern Connecticut, like you said, to get away from the streets, my mom had some issues and we just left Hartford, and they didn't have Taekwondo in the area. They had karate, and I just didn't want to switch art forms. I was really particular about what I wanted to do. So I kind of stopped, and I was kind of in a lull trying to figure out what my next move was. And I remember we were at Kelly and we got the little pamphlet, NFA football. And I always thought football was cool, and I was a Giants fan and I loved watching football, but I had never played. I didn't play Pee Wee or midget or anything like that. And I remember I just showed up, and Coach Spain was just like, I was there, and I was like, I used to skateboard at that time. I had my skateboard and my hair, and I was late because it was like voluntary workouts, but I was like, well, voluntary, I'll go when I want. So and I went over to Spain, and he looked me up and down. He's like, so you want to be a football player or you want to be a skateboarder? And I was like, football player. And he was like, good answer. He was like, come back tomorrow and leave that thing at home. You know, talk about my skateboard. And that next day I went on the field, I remember, and I didn't know what I was doing. And if you remember Ronnie Brees, who was this man-child fullback that used to play, I remember the first live scrimmage we had just nailed me, and I was like, I went flying. And, you know, but I got up. And one day I remember Spain came over. He was like, Winnick, you all right? You know, and I was like, yeah, I'm all right, coach. He was like, I'll give you one piece of advice. He's like, the harder you hit them, the less hard they'll ever hit you. And I was like, that just clicked. I was like, yeah, from there on, I just started nailing people. And that mantra just sticks with me. You know, when you're the aggressor, someone else is aggressive and isn't going to hit you as hard. You know what I mean? So I tend to live like that. But that was a moment that I always recall. But yeah, I played all 4 years. I never said I wasn't the greatest football player. You know, we have people like Steve Callender and Earl Lewis who were like, Matt Orcott were tremendous, being scouted by D1 schools, you know. And I wasn't the fastest, but I could just hit hard, and I would fill in where I could. I played nickelback and outside linebacker my senior year and just filled in where I could. And I just loved it. To me, football is just the camaraderie of it all. You know, that the feeling you have 50 dudes and we're all like best friends. Yeah. We played the first 2 years together and we're still good buds, and we haven't even talked to each other in years. There's just a certain camaraderie about it that I really loved. And then the game itself I loved. So, but you know, when I got to college, there were a couple of D1 schools that were like, yeah, you can walk under them. And I was like, or D2, I would say D2 schools. And I was like, nah, I don't really, because, you know, like there's a lot of work that goes into being a collegiate level football player, even if you're in a D2 or D3 school. And I was like, do I want to go through all that if there's really no potential for me to move forward? So when I got to Eastern, they didn't even have a football team. But we played flag football, as you mentioned. So
we made a team. Well, yeah. You brought up a bunch of things in there that I think are really interesting. For one, I got a parallel with you. My dad was in the military, so we had moved around a lot. When I was in Cape Cod, I did Taekwondo. When we moved here, so like it wasn't a thing that they had around. So I just stopped. But I'm wondering, like how we didn't end up getting you on the wrestling team if you were so big into martial arts. Nowadays with UFC, like that makes so much sense. Everyone's like, just, oh yeah, you're wrestling, UFC, martial arts, and all that's all one thing.
You know, that's a great question. I don't know why I was just super dedicated to football. Like I tried out for baseball a couple of times and I didn't make the team, but I was all year round. We talk about fitness. Even when I wasn't playing, I would meet up with Lamparelli and Topalis and these guys, and we'd go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week and work out, and we were doing sprints all the time. And even in the off season, that became my focus in terms of my athletic interest and everything that went with it. All the reason, even the way I work out today is still based on going to play football. I still do push pull and isolate muscles, and you know, I try to do endurance some days, and I still try to do sprints some days, and you know, things like that.
That's a pretty perfect transition, because actually I was right about to ask you to say what is fitness today in your life. And one of the things I do want to mention that you also said you talked about Coach Spain, we had Coach Nash, and we had great coaches back then, and they it just goes to show you what a great coach can do to influence the rest of your life. Like you said, one of the very first things that's ever been said to you by Coach Bain, it sticks with you today, and you're kind of living your life. And so, are you applying that still to how you're working out, and what else are you doing around on fitness? Are you in any other sports? Are you just keeping fit at the gym? What do you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't have the time to dedicate to playing an actual sport. I just, I'm constantly either with my family, working on my craft, performing, traveling, all those types of things. So I just get in the gym. I mean, the apartment complex I live in, we have a really nice gym. I think I'm like grateful because it's free and it's like literally like 2-minute walk away. So I just get in there and I still kind of do kind of similar vibe. I'll do some cardio up front just to keep shedding, because for me, the way my body is, if I don't do cardio, I just gain weight immediately. So I gotta like stay on that. And then right now I usually just like focus on muscle groups. So one day I'll do chest and tries, the next day I'll do buys and back, the next day I'll do shoulders. And I work my abs, different abs routines in just to at least I don't have abs anymore, but at least it keeps me going this way instead of this way. So you know, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we're in our 40s now, so it's not as easy to maintain.
You're always growing one way or the other. If you're not growing this way, you're growing that way.
For sure. But I do definitely, especially being an entertainer, I just want to look good. For instance, like you mentioned meth. Like, if you see Method Man lately, like he's been in the gym like insane, like curling 100-pound barbells, and like because he's on a mission right now. He said he wants to be in Marvel movies and stuff like that because he's taking his acting thing really serious. Point being is we have that song, and we've been, hopefully, God willing, soon we're gonna get this video together.
Nice.
And I'm gonna be in a music video with this guy. And this guy, I don't want to be next to this guy. And he's gonna be like, and I'm gonna be like, look like Homer Simpson. You know what I mean? So I take my physique, at least it just the appearance wise matters, but also like it's just important because if you want to live a long time, you got to exercise, man. You got to eat well. And I'm one of those dudes that I want to live to be at least 100. I really would love to be like that, like be an old Yoda kind of dude. So you got to take it serious now. You can't wait till it gets out of control and then be like, try to get your life back. No, it's just like every day matters. Think about the things you eat. Think about being physical as much as you can.
Yeah, that dynamic's always intrigued me. And one of my guests was she's an actress, and the thing was she's a bit gifted, so she kind of just stays in shape, but she's really strict on her food, so it's not too much from the exercise thing. But you and her and everyone else that's in the performing type of industry, whether it's music or movies, there's a demand on your body and how it looks. And the other thing is, so you live in New York City, right? And I think I read one time that New York City's got 20,000 restaurants. So let's talk a little bit about what's your diet like today? How do you maintain a little bit of that health, and maybe some of the thoughts that you've got to get ready for that Method Man video? What are you going to do?
I mean, yeah, look, man, when you're in New York, you have a million food options and you have pizza on every corner. And let's be honest, the pizza is the best in the world. So it's hard to resist when you're hungry and you can get a slice for 250. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
but that's one thing you got to try and think about, resist those types of things. And I mean, I usually, honestly, we do a lot of cooking at home because then you can focus on what it is that you're intaking, obviously better. There's so much good takeout in New York. So you have options galore, but most of them are going to pound it with salt and pound it with fat and pound it with butter and pound it with oil and all these things. So me and my family, we've gone through phases where we're low meat intake in general. We actually don't eat red meat. We eat some chicken and we eat fish a lot and stuff like that. And we'll even eat tofu and things like that and beans for protein. And we've gone through ways where we tend to be a little more vegan at times because I love meat and things like that. But at the same time, as I said, I'm on the longevity plan, and you're just going to be a lot healthier. Your body's going to function a lot better when you focus more on things like brown rice and vegetables and tofu and things like that, and fish, light fish and stuff like that, as long as you're not frying it. So that's kind of what it is. A lot of smoothies and things like that. But I mean, people always say our cashier's like, man, you guys eat a lot of vegetables. We're like, yeah, I mean, we literally, every time we go to the grocery store, probably more than half of our order is just fresh vegetables that we cook, whether it's cauliflower or Brussels. I mean, whatever, you name it. We get it, we cook it. It's not exciting. I mean, but it doesn't need to be exciting. It's not about that. It's about being able to just be as healthy as you can. And for not just for me, for my kids, my family. I want them to learn to live like that. You know, I wasn't raised like that. My family was eating butter and fried chicken and steak and mashed potatoes every night and this and that. And it's cool. I mean, you're gonna eat what you eat. And I'm not here to knock it. I'm just saying if you want to think about your long term and how you're gonna feel when you're 60 years old and 70 years old, these things matter now because this is how you destroy your colon. This is how you get overweight. This is how your arteries get clogged up by the things you do on a regular basis.
You talked about obviously New York. New York's known for that pizza. I'm gonna say though, Connecticut won best pizza state. And you've probably been to New Haven. You probably had the famous places down there. Obviously very good. So we know pizza is definitely on your list of vices, but one of the things that you can't resist. What else is on that list?
I mean, pizza,
Tell us a
if you have kids, first of all, it's really hard to avoid pizza because they want to eat pizza like 3 times a week. You know what I mean? And you're in a crunch and you can go out and buy a pie for, $20 and come back and everyone's happy. You know what I mean? So, well, for me, my ultimate, like the really thing that I really, it's really hard for me to resist. And I literally struggle because I would eat it probably all the time if I could, is just fried chicken.
Mm.
I just absolutely, I call myself a fried chicken connoisseur. When I go to different cities, I like to try different ones, different places. To
Right.
see what it's got. But I mean, that's just fried grease and lard, and
Yeah.
it,
Hey, you got to
that's,
find out about the good stuff.
I mean, but that's definitely my vice. If I'm having a bad day and I'm turning to food to make me feel better, it will probably be some fried chicken and mac and cheese.
Those are two good ones. So my wife's Colombian, and so I get lucky and I get that fortunate part of bringing in a lot of that. And I know you've got a Cuban background. So are there some things, some family recipes, things that you still eat today, or I mean, you could get any type of cuisine that you wanted in New York City. So you could definitely find some Cuban restaurants. Pretty hard to find around here, but how about some of that stuff that's maybe in your life today?
Well, to be honest, New York's is pretty limited on quality Cuban food. It
Really?
really is. I lived in Miami. That was like
Ah,
heaven in terms of that. And then but also the best place in the Northeast, in my opinion, what a lot of people say to get Cuban food is Union City, which is in New Jersey, kind of just over the border.
mm,
There's a little diaspora of Cuban people there that, I mean, they know what they're doing, you know? I cook. I mean, I cook rice and beans for myself. I cook arroz con pollo. Like I said, there's a lot of things I don't eat. Like I used to eat a lot that were really good. Like I used to love lechon and things like that. Like I said, I don't really eat pork anymore, but it's delicious. It's just a personal choice. But yeah, my kids, they love it. They was, Daddy, you're gonna make, they don't know arroz con pollo, which is just yellow rice with chicken and green olives, and sometimes you put peas and red peppers and things like that in it. But I'll make that because what's good about that too is you make this giant pot and everyone can eat off that for like 3, 4 days. Your wife's Colombian, she probably does the same thing. You just make
yeah,
a big pot of food and then everyone can just eat it. Oh,
it's the paella, and those come
oh yeah.
king size.
So, paella and arroz con pollo, they're kind of similar. It's the same kind of rice. It's just paella has the seafood and stuff in it, whereas arroz con pollo is just the chicken version. So either of those are good. Rice and beans, they say actually is one of the healthiest things you can eat. You know,
Right.
um, particularly though brown rice. That's the thing. And most Latinos will not use brown rice. Most Asian people, my wife is Asian, will not use brown rice. You just learn to eat white rice, and that's what you want. But white rice is bleached. A lot of people, maybe they do that. Maybe some people they don't know that they bleach it. So in the process, it just becomes like pointless carbs. There's no actual nutrition
Yeah.
rice. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll make my own version with brown rice as a substitute. And then if you have beans and brown rice, that could literally be a meal. You have all the nutrients you need right there. You don't even need to add a meat or a side like my doodle or nothing like that. So
So are you
yeah.
the chef in the house? Are you're the one?
I would call myself the lead chef. Yes. I'm the lead. I'm the lead chef. My wife, she's Japanese American. She grew up in LA, and I think her mom was more of like a takeout kind of mom because that's just kind of they were both working, I think, when she grew up. And she kind of falls in that. But she can cook, she'll pull out but she's like one of those, she'll pull out her recipe book and then she'll follow it. Me, I have it on here. I just, all right, you want to cook? That's something. You know, I was just, I like to cook. It's fun. I would say,
Start? Mike, how did that start? How'd you get into cooking? What was like your foray into it?
college, man. You know, like college, living on your own, you get tired of eating that. I think we had Hurley Hall at Eastern, and
Yeah.
then it's just like the same thing, burgers and pizza every day. And you're like, I can't, like, you just realize you can't eat that no more. So I used to, when I first had a college apartment with a stove, my mother and my grandmother, they were both like real banging cooks. So I used to call them and be like, yo, where am I? How do I make the pork chops used to make? And she would guide me through over the phone, da da da, you know? You do that a few times and you realize it's not that difficult, you know?
Yeah.
And then through time,
Know how.
yeah, you just practice and try different things and like, and then over time I would have different roommates that were different nationalities and they'd show me different things. So yeah, man. Uh,
So are you a down to the recipe type of guy, or are you an eyeball it? Like,
no, yeah, no, I don't
more like
ever
that
look at a
guy?
recipe unless I really just don't know what it is and I want to try something. My grandma used to say, I said, Grandma, how you do? She goes, I don't know. I don't know the recipe. She goes, I just cook to taste.
Yeah.
And now I get it because I'm the same way. I'm like, put a little bit of this, try it. Oh no, I need some more salt. You know, that is that. So that's how.
That's exactly what my wife does. That's exactly what her mom does. Her mom actually has a cooking business. She caters and she still does everything like that. It's to taste and to eyeball. And then that to me blows my mind. I'm like, what does the recipe say? Does it say a teaspoon of this? Or what does it say? I'm just like eyeballing and stuff. I don't know, man.
Yeah, exactly.
To a certain extent.
Because you know what I do is like with spices, I smell it, and then you get an idea what it's gonna taste like in the food, right? And then I put it in based on the smell. How much of that I just smelled do I want that to kind of resonate? So I guess that's the strategy, man. If you guys, I'm really want to cue you guys in right now. You guys hit me up, DM me, I'll talk to you more about this.
For me, man, at the end of the day, as long as it tastes good, I'm happy. Hey, cook it any which way you want with, put whatever you want in it. I don't care if it follows a recipe. If it tastes good, I'll be happy. If I'm making it myself, I'm definitely know that I'm going to be struggling having this come out right. If I'm like, oh, it said to put 2 lines in there, we're short on that or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But one of the things that you had just said before we were talking about, Mike, is that part of what you got to do is you got to stay fit for your career, to be up there on stage. And I want to move us into talking about the things that are fun in your life to do. What do you do for fun? And I think almost by definition, what you do for a living is fun. I mean, most kids, when they're growing up, they want to do a couple of things. They want to be a sports star, they want to be a music star, or maybe a movie star, you know what I mean? And you are one of those things. So maybe talk a little bit about what's fun in your life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm never happier than being on stage. Usually, I have my band. We didn't really talk much about Nickel and Dime, but it's a 7-piece band of really, really talented jazz musicians that they also all play with the who's, you name it, they play with them. And so they're super talented and we get on stage and we just have a blast. I mean, that's just like what I love about them is they're free, and it's not like a DJ up there with a record. I love play with the DJ too, but with the DJ, the beat is the beat and you just kind of do what you do. But when you have a band
Mm.
and everyone's improvising and they can completely come up with something off the cuff, and then I could just like go in and start freestyling with them. There's this certain euphoria that's happening while we're all on stage together, which is amazing. And since COVID, it's kind of slowed down. We haven't performed as much, which I'm trying to get back in and start booking more because I really miss it. But that's always a blast, and I love being in the studio too. I love the art of just sitting and listening to the music and then deciding what the poetry is going to be. And then there's a transition from, yeah, okay, I wrote it. This is awesome. And then I'm like, then you get in the studio and you might realize that what you wrote might not exactly fit. So then there's a little adaptive kind of period where you're like, all right, let me edit this, da, da, da. And then all of a sudden it just clicks. All of a sudden I'm like, all right, let me try this. Hit record, because I just record myself, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like magic. You like all of a sudden you just know it. Like I'll know like as I'm finished, I'm like, yeah, that's the one. Boom, like that's it. And then so that's music is fun, man. I love that aspect of my life. I love being a dad. Like we talked about this. I have 3 kids. They're all amazing children, really different in age. My oldest daughter, she's 16, and she's driving and just got into the honor society and looking at colleges. She has a boyfriend. My son is 12 and he likes to play soccer, and play video games, typical kid, great kid. And then my youngest, Kylie, she's 4 and she's still excited about the Easter Bunny and things like that. So I have all different levels of fun and joy that I have with them because they all like to do different things. And as a dad, when you have multiple kids like that, you got to try to balance it. Sometimes we all go together. Sometimes you give each one individual time and energy because they need that from you too, you know?
And is it passed on? How do you pass it on to the next generation? Is this something that you try to get into their lives? Or are you more like a parent that just say whatever they get into, they get into?
I don't. I was as a parent, I always try to treat my position like I'm a tour guide. You know, I can show you things, but you're gonna make your own ultimate decision. I don't think it's personally. I don't want to force them to do things they don't want to do, as long as they're doing the right thing. You know. But music, they all are very musical in nature. My oldest, she can actually sing really well, and she was very much into it for a little while. I think she's going to be more so at some point soon. But she was also playing piano and she could play and sing at the same time, which is amazing. I can't do anything like that. My middle kid, he's like a percussionist by nature. He has done some drum lessons and stuff like that. Hasn't gone into it too hard, but I think he might some more. And my little one, she's singing all the time. She just loves music. Her mother is a classically trained violist. So she has both sides. Music is just in her DNA. So she's very musical. We're all very, there's always lots of singing going on and people dancing. And my son likes to beatbox. I taught him when he was 2, I used to teach him how to beatbox and he'll still do it today to this day. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't want to force them. I want them to develop into what they want to be. Ultimately, that's what matters, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in my opinion, that's the way to go, right? Not to force your kids into things. I mean, you got to encourage your kids into certain things. But I was curious because this is what you do. This wasn't just something that you did in high school or something like that. It's something you're very successful at, and you see it all the time. You see, okay, who is this new actress or who is this new performer? Oh, you know, their dad or their mom was Madonna. You know, it's like you kind of see like they learn the business and it just kind of follows through and you pick it up. And that's probably a huge advantage that your kids could have versus some other kids that are out there. They could learn this entire business for you. And I'm assuming that would be a ton of fun for you. But I also wanted to see you tell people a little bit how you got into it to begin with. Like, how did you really get into doing this? And I'll just tell you from my perspective, back when we were in high school, you were more of a sports guy, like playing football. I don't know what you did when you went home and stuff like this, but shortly after in college, you got into music. And so maybe tell people a little bit, how did you get into it on a certain level, like what really lit the fire? But then the other thing is, how could you encourage some kids that are really wanting to do this, but don't think it's something that it can make a reality?
Hmm. Honestly, you hit the nail on the head. In high school, football, like I said, was my thing. I was always a hip hop head though. I always loved hip hop. We said I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut in the early 80s. And we were one of the first communities outside of New York that was really starting to embrace hip hop in the Northeast. And there were breakers everywhere and people had boom boxes everywhere. And all of my friends' older brothers were all listening to the Fat Boys and Boogie Down Productions and things like that. And so I was always hip hop music and I was always passionate about it. I never really thought as a young man, like as a teenager, that was something I was going to do at all though. You know, I tried maybe 1 or time, 2 times to write, but it was nothing very serious. And when I got to Eastern, like we said, there was no football team and I was kind of going through, I won't say it wasn't a crisis, but like an identity upheaval where I wasn't really sure what to do because I had focused so much of my time and energy into that sport and that's who I was. And it was gone, you know, and real soon after, within my first couple weeks, one of my classmates who ended up being in all of my classes. He was actually from just outside of Hartford. We had all the same classes first semester. He lived on my floor. It was like God saying like that we were supposed to be buds, you know. We used to hang out all the time and stuff. And he was like, "Look, man, I got some equipment in my room. You ever write rhymes?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, but you know, I never really." He's like, "Man, just come over, come try." And it's funny because he had this is before everyone had on their computer. It was an actual machine, a 4-track recorder. It was about this big, you know. And he took it from his high school teacher. He said he can borrow it for the summer, and then he never gave it back. And so he had it here in college. And man, we hit it off. We just took this beat from Chamber from I remember from the Geniuses album, and we just made this first rap together. And I was just so excited, and he was excited because he was doing it by himself for a while, but he didn't have a partner. It was like boom, right away. Me and him just started like that's. We just stopped paying attention to class, which I don't advocate if there's any children listening. And we would just sit and write rhymes, and that was our thing. Like we were just recording. And I don't know if you remember or not, but like that sophomore year, there was like a talent show at Eastern where the prize was you can meet the Bad Boy representatives because they were going to come with 112 was going to do a show. So
Yeah.
me and my boy were like, all right, cool, let's do it. So it was my first time on stage, and we crushed it. We actually won. We tied this other R&B group. They called it a tie. They let us go meet the Bad Boy reps. And yeah, it's a funny story from that. But ultimately, it's funny because we both ended up moving to Miami, him and I, we transferred to University of Miami. We just didn't want to be in Connecticut anymore. And then we really did our thing in Florida. I think that's after we lost touch. And that's before social media was really a thing. So you wouldn't know, but like we were performing all over South Florida, and we had a band, and we put out an album that was actually received well in the community. And we were talking to J Records at the time, which was Clive Davis's label. And they were super interested in us. And then things kind of like fell apart between all of us. Basically, it's like me and my boy, he's still one of my best friends, but we had creative differences. He just wanted to go on one path and I wanted to go on the other. And then it's like, then that when that was over, it was like, damn, okay, so now what do I do? Because I had really become successful as a writer, as a performer. I had taken making beats and things like that. And I wanted to keep going. And I had started dating a girl that went to University of Miami with me, but she had moved back to Brooklyn where she was from. And she was like, why don't you just move in with me and just start doing your thing up here? And I was like, okay, bet. So I did. And within 6 months, I put out my first, mixtape. That's when mixtapes were a thing. And then people were feeling that. And like MySpace was coming out and I was making all these fans on MySpace. And then I just kept putting out more music, and then I met my guys from my band, and then we started performing all over the place. It just kind of snowballed,
Yeah.
momentum. And now here I am today. I'm kind of a little more focused on back on my solo career because I love my band and we're going to make a new album and we're going to play more and stuff. But there's something to being your own artist where you don't have to answer to other people about your creative decisions. You can just do whatever it is you envision without someone being like, well, maybe da da da. And you're like, no, that's not what, you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I am right now. I already put out that album, Bars for Days, which you talked about. And I'm actually already in the process of finishing a new solo album, which I'm trying to get out. I'll give you the exclusive. Hopefully sometime this year, it's going to come out.
Nice.
And the point I'm making with all this, and it leads into your second part of your question, is if you follow that timeline, what you're seeing is a person, an individual who has been focused on his craft because that's what he just feels like he needs to do. That's what I feel like I need to do every day of my life. I get up and I want to write, and these things are in my mind and I have to put them down and I have to record them. It's never been so much. Yeah, you want success, but when you're going through the creative process, it's never been about, I need to do this because this is what's going to make me the next famous so-and-so, the next Kendrick Lamar or whatever. It's never been about that. It's just been about, this is what I need to do to feel good about myself. This is I need to create. I need to be this because this is who I am.
Mm.
And this is what I always tell young people that come to me. Like, how do you get into rapping? What do you suggest? I'm gonna tell you two things, man. One, figure out a way that you can record on your own without having to go to a studio or deal with other people. Figure out a way that you can record on your own and just start doing it for two reasons. Number one, you need to listen to yourself. You need to go back and see what you like, see what you didn't like, figure out how to make yourself better. That's how you do it, but you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it, and then the other side of that coin is because that's really what, if you're going to be a rapper, you're going to rap, you're going to tell stories, you're going to write poetry. That's what you do. It's not about being on stage with your gold chains and popping bottles with Nicki Minaj. Yeah, maybe if that happens for you, that's great. That's fun. Make $1 million, next week. That's great. That's fun. But that's not what the job actually is. Your job is to write music and make music because that's what you do. You're going to say things and you're going to have a message and it's got to be true to you. Who are you? Who are you in this world? What do you reflect? I met Dane Cook one time and I asked him, if you know him, he's a comedian. He's really like animated and stuff. And I asked him, I said, Dane, do you have any advice? He's like, you want some advice, man? He's like, figure out exactly who it is that you are and then become the biggest cartoon of that you can ever be. And that's one of those moments that stick with you in terms of getting advice, and it stuck with me. And it's like, figure out what you are and then be it and be it every day because you don't know how to be anything else. And the rest will come the way it comes, you know? Am I a millionaire from hip hop? No, not at all. Not even close, man. But am I achieving success? Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, I performed around the world. I performed at the Blue Note. I have songs with Method Man and Timbo King, who's also part of the Wu-Tang affiliate clan. And I have some other big name people that I'm doing songs with right now for my new project. And it's all coming together because people hear me and they respect it. You know, they respect what I do. But you have to be able to get to a point where what you're doing is respectable. You know, it's very easy to get on track and just be like, blah, 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 blah.
I love the advice that you gave to people because in a nutshell, I got a few thoughts on it, right? It's work. You're telling people to work at what they're doing. But it was really interesting to hear you talk about your path, man, because if I think about it, it's some way, it is serendipitous. You started off, you're around people that are breakdancing. They're carrying around boom boxes. You got your influence there. You go to Eastern, you meet your buddy. He's like, hey, come in here. Next thing you know, you guys are making stuff on a 4-track. Then you go down to Miami and you're continuing on your music career there. Then you start dating a girl in Brooklyn. She says, hey, come up here and do your thing up here. I mean, it's like, if you were just to hear that, you'd be like, oh man, it was all in the cards. From like you didn't really have to do that much, but I've watched you grind away at this, following your career as you're going from point A to point B. You're really working.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I've recorded hundreds of tracks and I've performed all over God's creation. And I mean, it's fun, but that takes commitment, man. You have to be committed to achieve those things. And that's what I like. I think a lot of kids think they can just slap something together with Fruity Loops and whatever the software recording they have, and it's going to be a big hit. And you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe you will be like Little Nas X, who comes out with this weird country rap song and all of a sudden there's a big hit and you're a fucking hit. But honestly, that's not reality, man. That's a drop in the bucket. For most people, if you want to be something, be it. It boils down to that. If you want to be a fitness trainer, learn about fitness, start training people every day, figure out how to get better every day. It's not rocket science, man. Anything you want to be, you can be. Whether you're the greatest or not, you can be it. But you can, even if you're not the greatest when you start, you can continue and get better and better. Like I thought I was dope 15, 20 years ago. And I listen back, I'm like, yeah, it was pretty dope. But I mean, now I'm light years ahead. You know why I'm light years ahead? Because I kept working on my craft. I kept figuring out what it is I can do better. I kept expanding my horizons by working with people who are Grammy recording artists and Grammy recording MCs and stuff. And I'm not saying that because I'm boasting. What I'm saying, was it you want to play with the big dogs? You know, you gotta, how's that? You know, man, you gotta play with them if you want to get to that level is my point. That's my point. If you want to get to that level, if you want to be an NBA star, you gotta start going to play with NBA players. I mean, that's just it. So you gotta keep pushing, man. And it's like that with everything in life. And we're tailing it right back around to food and fitness and all that, man. It's like, you want to be fit? Well, work on it every day. Are you gonna slam dunk every day? No, one day you're gonna like break down and have a hot fudge sundae and sit around all day watching TV eating nachos. Yeah, you're gonna do that one day because we're human. you gotta have.
And you know, the other thing you said that I really like is you said you got to be yourself and you got to tell a story, right? And your lyrics are deep. And I want to give you 1 second to talk about what got you into the depth. You know, you've got education, you've got a lot of stuff going on in your lyrics. These are deep lyrics. These are not just, like you said, you can't just go out there, pencil whip these things. and then, think that that's how it's gonna work out. There's a lot behind what goes on there.
Yeah, I think I was just drawn towards that in general. Even when I think about like the MCs that I'm drawn to, they're definitely guys that tend to be on a deeper terrain. I love listening to Andre 3000 and I love listening to Wu-Tang. All of them, they tend to be very deep, they're street, and Nas and people like that. I mean, there's a depth to what's happening. Even when we go back to like the 90s when we were listening to Tribe Called Quest, like they had a message. So I was already drawn towards that type of music more so than like gangster rap and things like that. But for me, it was a development process as well. Yeah, you mentioned education. I took a lot of philosophy classes, man. I like classes about metaphysics and thinking about existence and things like that. So, and because it intrigues me, that's why I took those classes in the first place. Not because I necessarily wanted to develop into being a philosopher. I was intrigued by it. I wanted to learn about it more. And then innately that just appears in your lyrics. The more that you understand certain things, they appear. But I think it's important. I think that I personally believe that the true essence of what hip hop is supposed to be is is relaying this message to people that it was a message of rebellion. It was a message of I don't know, almost a way to motivate you through life in a way without being overly crazy. It's not super positivity, but there's this underlying belly. It's gonna be okay, because hip hop comes from the streets. It comes from people that were oppressed. And when you listen to the really old original hip hop, the original rap songs, Grandmaster Flash and these guys, whatever message, there was this underlying message. You're not gonna keep me down. You're not gonna keep us down. We're gonna rise above this. You know what I mean? And I still believe that that's where it's supposed to be. And I know like contemporary hip hop is taking a spin 180 in the other direction, and they're talking about drugs and sex. And it's not like they're the first. I mean, the gangster rappers were doing the same thing, but what's really mostly popular today doesn't have much depth other than like Kendrick Lamar or someone like that. He's one of the newer guys. Like he just released something and I didn't really like the music, but like when you listen to the lyrics, it was like, wow, he's actually really saying something. It's a platform. It's a platform. And what's the point of being on a platform if you're gonna go talk nonsense? you know?
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that you said that I think it stood out to me, and I think a lot of people say this that are successful at things. They say a lot. What you were doing is because you loved it. Like you got it. Starting from the very beginning, you were saying, "Hey, I rap because I have to, man. I just have to do this. It's something that I feel like I'm compelled. I need to do." All the way down to you're just saying that I just lost my train of thought there actually for a second. But it's just really about, oh yeah, down to philosophy, right? So you're talking about philosophy. You got into philosophy just because you loved it, right? And then that really, in a large way, became part of your music. I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. I mean, if you have something to throw on to that, go ahead. But what I always like to do is have people say, hey, what's your most ideal fun day, or what's your most ideal fun week or vacation or something? If you were going to lay it out, what would you be doing? Are you waking up in the morning writing lyrics, and at nighttime you're going to a show, in the middle of the day you're playing with your kids, or what would be your ideal fun time?
Ideal. I mean, ideal like anything in the world. I would love to take my family to Europe and get it like a tour going out there and do something because I would love to. I travel a lot. I've seen a lot of the world, and I would love for my kids to. They haven't really had an opportunity yet, and I think that would be totally amazing to like go to London for a few days, do some shows, do some recording, and then during my off time, go do chill out with my kids and go see the town, and then pack up and go to Paris, and then pack up and go to Amsterdam, and then pack up and go to Athens, and like do that for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ideal because I love traveling, man. I've been to Cuba, I've been to Peru, I've been to Egypt, I've been to Japan, I've been to a lot of places, and I want to instill that in my children. I think that's something that's so important, and I think this world would be so different, honestly, if people just travel more, especially this country. There's so many people that are just so stuck in that little enclave of wherever they live, and whether they live in Norwich or they live in New York in the Bronx or they live wherever the hell they live, and they don't see outside of the picture. And the only way you can see outside of that picture is by stepping outside. And it just changes you. It really changes you. So I would love to do that for my kids. That would be ideal. But in the
Nice.
meantime, getting paid to do what I love, you
Yeah.
know, like coming up the whole time, making some money, go to the studios. There's a bunch of producers I know out there that I would love to be in the studio with, like, because we work through email and stuff. But it would be cool to actually be in the studio with these guys and working with them in real time, you know? So yeah, that's my dream. That's my fantasy.
Yeah, I want to say I say that all the time. I say it all the time. I've been lucky enough to travel a lot, and my favorite thing of all about travel is different mindsets. People think differently, and like you said, if you don't get out of your little box, you think everyone thinks the same way. You don't have to go far to experience a different culture. You can go different states and get a different, the way people think it is different, and you get to go to different countries. It's totally. Might say the one thing. Everybody that you grew up with might react to one way. They might be and say, "Oh, that was terrible," and they might well say, "That was awesome. That was great." And it gives you that ability to step back and not sweat the small stuff and think about things differently. And I just think, does that also come out in your music?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Traveling and things like that. I actually have a song where I kind of talk about that. Like everybody out there, they want the same thing, and that stems from traveling. But you realize, like, yeah, we're different. Yeah, you're gonna go to China right now. Yeah, we're different. Go to Africa right now. We're different. But inherently, like deep down the root of all of us, I promise you, the majority of people that you come across are all of them. They want the same thing. They just want to be happy. They want to be okay in life. They want their family to be okay. They want to eat good things and laugh. 98% of the world. And then there's like this small little percentage that who knows, they're just like weird outliers. But like most people, and you learn that through travel, you realize, yeah, we're all different, but we're really, really, really the same. Humans are really the same. So like and then when you travel and then you think about when you look at war and stuff, and these people are killing people for no damn reason, and you're like, these poor people, they just wanted to wake up and
Right.
live their life and hang out with their family. Like, look at Ukraine right now. They just wanted to wake up and live their life with their family. And for what? It's completely taken away for what? And it really expands your mind to be able to say those things when you've traveled. You don't have to travel to Ukraine to understand that, because I've traveled 20 other places, and everyone, that's all they want, man. Everyone just wants to live their life and be okay and have their family be okay.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important, man. It's definitely important to travel. I advocate all of y'all paying attention. If you're still here at the end of this podcast and listening, go travel, man. Go do something. And DM me and Andy about it. Tell us what you did. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then come back and tell us what perspective you pulled from that. Like, we reached the capstone. So right now I want to give it to you to say, hey, what is your perspective on fitness, food, and fun? You've talked a little bit about this, but I want to give you a chance to go after it again. And so, are these things all together for you? Do you see them differently? Are they important in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's life. That's the key. It's lifestyle. It's life decisions. It's very easy in this world to fall off path, to eat like crap, to get lethargic, to get in a rut, and not be enjoying life. And I'm not gonna lie, to be healthy physically, to be healthy mentally, emotionally, it usually takes commitment, discipline, work. Doesn't make sense. Maybe some people are like, oh, why do I have to work to be happy? Because if you're not in a good place, you have to make a stand with yourself and say, well, I need to change things so I can get into a good place. So that's where the fun comes in, right? And obviously eating and taking care of yourself and working out. I mean, that takes discipline. But you know what? When you're done, like, do me a favor. Here's my challenge to anyone paying attention right now. Eat clean for a month. Work out 4 times minimum a week and eat clean for a month. And then come back to us and tell us not just how you feel physically, tell us how you feel mentally. Because when you're taking care of yourself and you're exercising and you're not taking in tons of toxins and things like that come in processed foods, you're going to feel 20 years younger. You're going to feel like you did 20 years, like talking people our age specifically. But you know what I mean? It really happens. Take care of yourself. And like, I feel great, man. For the most part, we have friends that we went to high school with that are like old men. right now. Like, I see them on Facebook and whatever, and they're fat and they're bald and they look like they're like 68. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, like you got to get a hold, you got to get a grip because you're not going to make it. And it's a decision. So it all comes together. You want to be happy, you want to feel good, you want to be in shape. You got to draw a line with yourself and work on it every day. You're not going to be perfect every day. Like I said, some days you're going to Super Bowl's on. You're going to drink beer and probably eat nachos with your boys all day. You're not going to work out, most likely, right? It's fine. But what are you going to do on Monday? Are you going to sit around on Monday or are you going to get back on the horse, right? And that's all it is. It's everything in life. We talk about my music. It's always about getting back on the horse. So that's just how I live. That's my mantra. And that's what I really, everybody on here, food, fun, fitness, that's what it takes, really. Drawing a line with yourself and pushing yourself in that direction as much as you can. Even when you fall off sometimes, recognize that, okay, I fell off. Maybe I fell off. I went on vacation for a week and I drank my face off at buffets at Vegas. Cool. Well,
Would you say you're a better performer on stage when you're more fit than when you're less fit? If you're eating right, you're getting a little exercise, maybe even think a little more clearly so the lyrics are coming to you better.
absolutely, man. I mean, when I feel good, I can put on such a better performance. Like, first of all, I'm up there like average like 60, 70 for minutes, and it's high intensity, man. If you ever see me, I'm not like lethargic on stage. I'm pretty high intensity, so it could be easy to get winded. And to be a rapper,
Yeah.
you can't get winded. That can't be a thing, right? So you have to be in shape, you know. So yeah, I've been in situations though where I've been in a rut and I can feel like my physique started to slag, and then when I get on stage, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel good. So that's another reason. If I'm performing, I'll probably start doing like heavy cardio sessions a lot, get my wind up. I'll go on the cardio machine and I'll rap my lyrics while I'm actually doing the exercise. Because if I can push my lungs while I'm in the middle of that, I can definitely push myself
Yeah.
on stage. You know, so that all that stuff matters, man, for sure.
Yeah. That's really unique, man. And I think about that, like you're up there, you're performing, it's super exhausting just from a moving around standpoint. But like you said, you're spitting out lyrics, you're word after word after word. You don't have any time to take deep breaths or like, hold on, I got to catch my breath, time out. Maybe you could just put the mic over here and say, the band's going to get it. Band's going to get you for a few minutes. But then you get people see that, they're going to be like, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll pass it over to the trumpet player or something for
Yeah.
a minute. That's what I've happened. Yeah. You know, man, drop a solo beat. I'll be back. But you don't want that. You don't want that to be what you rely on. Definitely not. So I definitely important to be in shape. And I just advocate everybody. Just take care of yourself. You only get this one go around and it's over. You want to live as long as you can, but you also want to be healthy as long as you can. And that really, really, really stems from what you eat and the choices you make on a daily basis. So plus, yo, we're about to leave. I just want to plug the book, man, if it's cool.
Oh, 100%. Anything else you want to plug? Let's
Bars for Days, Mike Nichols. Go on Amazon, go on my website, spotmeanickel.com. Norwich, I know a lot of y'all paying attention. All of you guys should own this book right now. All of you guys, there's no excuses. I know a bunch of you already do. Shout out to E-Dub and everyone else that already has it. Thank you.